Modal verbs are like special helpers in English grammar. They add extra meaning to main verbs. They tell us about the possibility, permission, ability, or necessity of an action. For example, instead of just saying I go to the store, we can say I can go to the store to show we are able to go, or we can say I must go to the store to show it is necessary. Modal verbs are different from other verbs in a few ways. They don't change their form based on the subject. We say I can, you can, he can, and so on. They are always followed by the base form of the main verb, without to. For example, we say can swim, not can to swim. Some common modal verbs are can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would. Modal verbs are very useful for talking about abilities and permissions. Can is used to express ability. For example, she can sing beautifully means she has the ability to sing well. Similarly, he can lift that heavy box means he is strong enough to lift it. Can is also used to ask for and give permission. For instance, can I borrow your pen is a polite way of asking for permission. May is another modal verb used for permission. It is more formal than can. For example, may I leave the table, please? Is a polite request to be excused. Modal verbs can express how likely or uncertain something is. May and might are used to talk about possibilities. May suggests a slightly higher possibility than might. For instance, it may rain today means there's a reasonable chance of rain. It might rain today suggests a lower chance of rain. Could is also used to express possibility, often in situations that are less certain. For example, he could be at the library means it's possible he's there, but we're not sure. Sometimes we need to express that something is necessary or obligatory. This is where modal verbs like must and have to come in. Must is used for strong obligations or necessities. For example, you must wear a helmet while riding a motorcycle is a rule or law. Have to is similar to must, but is often used for obligations that come from external sources. For instance, I have to finish this report by tomorrow implies a deadline set by someone else. Section 5. Advice and suggestions. Modal verbs can also be used to give advice or make suggestions. Should and ought to are commonly used for this purpose. Should is used to offer advice or suggest the right course of action. For instance, you should study harder for the next exam is a piece of advice. Ought to is similar to should but is stronger and implies a moral obligation. For example, you ought to apologize for what you did suggests a moral imperative to apologize. Section 6. Modal verbs in the past tense. Many modal verbs have past tense forms. Could is the past tense of can, might is the past tense of may, and would is the past tense of will. For past abilities, we use could. For example, she could play the piano when she was younger means she had the ability to play in the past. For past possibilities, we use might or could. He might have gone to the park suggests a past possibility. We use would for past habits or repeated actions. When I was a child, I would visit my grandparents every summer. Describes a habitual action in the past. Section 7. Comparing English and Hindi modal verbs. English and Hindi both use modal verbs, and there are similarities in how they express certain concepts. For instance, can in English is often translated as skna, sakna in Hindi. Both convey the ability to do something. Similarly, should in English is often translated as kahi, chahiye in Hindi, both expressing obligation or advice. However, there are also differences in usage and nuances. It's important to learn the specific contexts and meanings of modal verbs in both languages. Section 8. Common mistakes to avoid. When using modal verbs, it's easy to make mistakes, especially for English learners. One common error is using the infinitive form of the verb after a modal. Remember, we use the base form of the verb. For example, we say, she can swim, not she can to swim. Another mistake is using modal verbs in the past tense when they should be in the present tense, and adem versa. Pay close attention to the time frame of the sentence to choose the correct tense. Section 9. Mastering modals for effective communication. Modal verbs are essential for clear and effective communication in English. They allow us to express a wide range of meanings and nuances that would be difficult to convey otherwise. By understanding the different modal verbs, their functions, and how to use them correctly, you can significantly enhance your ability to communicate confidently and accurately in various situations. Keep practicing with real-life examples, and soon you'll be a master of modal verbs.